Hello and welcome to Handheld News Nuggets, the vodcast where I cover whatever the hell I want as far as recent handheld news. This might be a weekly or monthly thing, just depends on what's going on in the handheld space. So let's dive right in. The theme of this episode is Flip Out, dude. It is sort of a clamshell themed week, and we're starting off with a bang here. So first up, on Monday, we saw the announcement of the Ayaneo Pocket DS Indiegogo campaign going live. That is a dual screen handheld with a 7-inch OLED on the top up to 165 Hertz and a 5-inch 4:3 LCD on the bottom screen, and that is starting at about $400 on the Indiegogo. It's running the Snapdragon G3X Gen 2, which is sort of like a modified 8 Gen 2, overclocked GPU. As long as it can be cooled, it does perform a little better than the 8 Gen 2, but we're in the same ballpark. So the same performance there is expected as what we've already seen on the Pocket DMG, Pocket S, and Evo. That chip is a known quantity. Now, there is one catch I want you guys to be aware of when it comes to the Pocket DS and potentially other dual screen devices, which is even though we have 165 Hertz screen on the upper, the LCD on the bottom is only 60 Hertz, and unfortunately, maybe just due to Android limitations and the way it displays items on the screen, you can only run both screens at the same refresh. So if you want both screens on, your top screen is limited to 60 Hertz. You can't run 165 Hertz for streaming and then have a guide on the bottom. You're gonna either have to go down to 60 Hertz or you're gonna have to turn that bottom screen off. They did say there's gonna be quick buttons to easily switch between those combinations, but just something to keep in where your refresh will be limited. Now, I did pre-order the Pocket DS on Monday because I am sort of interested in it. I think it might be one of the coolest ways to play Nintendo DS and 3DS via emulation, but that's also before the next item on our list today was announced. And that is the AYN Thor, and also the Odin 3, but we don't have details on that yet. The Thor is, you guessed it, another clamshell. This time it's a 6-inch upper screen and a 3.92-inch lower screen. Now, both of these are OLED, which first of all makes the 6-inch 16:9 OLED the first of its kind. We haven't seen a 6-inch 16:9 screen anywhere. Most 6-inch class screens have been phone screens with ultra-wide aspect ratios and not ideal. We've seen 5.5-inch OLEDs, we've seen 7-inch OLEDs, but this will be the first time we have 6-inch full HD OLED in that aspect ratio. So that'll be interesting to see. And I believe it's 120 Hertz. However, again, the bottom screen is only 60 Hertz. And I assume it's going to have the same issue with the refresh rate as the Pocket DS is, which is that they will both have to run at 60 Hertz if you're using both screens, but that remains to be seen. AYN has not commented on that. Now, that lower screen is the same one from the Retroid Pocket Mini V2, so we have kind of a known quantity there, but that upper screen is brand new. And then hot off the press as of this morning, it is now known that we have pricing for these, as well as yesterday we found out the versions. So we've got a Snapdragon 865 for the budget version at $249, which is very interesting to me because there we are just like $30, I think, above a Retroid Pocket 5, so it's very close. Same chipset, but you get a half-inch bigger screen and a clamshell, and the Flip 2 as well. Sorry, both of them are sort of in that just over 200, I think like 220 ballpark. So that sort of seems like some cannibalization of those sales there, but that remains to be seen. Now, the 8 Gen 2 is really interesting because this is kind of like a true successor to the Odin 2 in a sense that it is that 6-inch screen size and not the big 7-inch from the Odin 2 Portal, but it is a clamshell. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see those. And that 8 Gen 2 version starts at $299, going up to $429 depending on the spec that you pick. I think it'll be a nice size. I've been kind of waiting for something that's 6 inches in the Android emulation space, but I am a little worried about the buttons and triggers on that one. I don't know if you've followed past reviews of mine, but in general with AYN and Retroid, I have not been a huge fan of their buttons. They're often kind of clacky when you press them, and I just haven't thought that they felt super great, but we will see. I think the Pocket DS might have better buttons, but now, you know what, AYN kind of just came in, did a 1-2 punch on Ayaneo in a sense that they said, oh, hey, you've got your $400 dual screen device that's roughly Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. Well, we'll do it for $100 less. Granted, it is 1 inch smaller, And there are going to be some other small differences between the two, but it does kind of make it a harder sell. If you were somebody that really wanted a dual screen device, and up until now, really all you've had is like the Surface Duo folding phone in a stretchy controller, which is sort of janky. If you've been waiting for this true dual screen device, we did have the Ayaneo Flip 1S, which is a PC handheld, but much more expensive, much worse battery life, much more heat. So for Android space, ARM chip inside, this is really a time for everyone to eat. And I think that AYN has kind of stolen some thunder from Ayaneo here. Last I checked this morning, Ayaneo did have over 1,000 backers on the Pocket DS, but it remains to see how strong those hold. And I'm very interested to see if AYN ships at like the same time or sooner even than Ayaneo, even though it was announced after. And we've known about the Ayaneo for a while, and it just went live for pre-orders recently. I think they're saying the order is going to start in September, October, but you never know with Ayaneo. Sometimes there's delays. Sometimes 2 people get it the first month, and then it takes several months for everybody else to get it. So we really don't know what their production is like for that. So the Thor could arrive in people's hands sooner. We don't know. We don't know yet when the orders are going live and when they're going to be shipped out. So all we've got are renders. So, patience on that one. If the Pocket DS is your thing and you like the 7 inches, I don't think you can necessarily go wrong with it. But if you want something more compact, it might be better to wait it out. So that kind of wraps up the clamshell section of the broadcast today, the 2 kind of big pieces of news. And, again, Ayaneo versus the AYN, you're going to see a couple trade-offs. The Ayaneo does only have an LCD panel on the bottom while it has OLED on the top, but you get a bigger, higher refresh screen. So if you're doing streaming and that kind of stuff, maybe GeForce Now, then the Pocket DS could be pretty good. And for, stop for a second here. For either of them, 60 hertz is plenty for emulation. There's not going to do any high refresh Nintendo DS or DS on these. It's going to be 60 hertz. So both screens running at 60 hertz, that's really a non-issue for both devices. But yeah, just something to keep in mind. Anyway, the AYN, slightly less refresh at 120 and a 6-inch screen, so it's a little bit smaller if you're going to be doing something like PC streaming. But I think for emulation, it's potentially better because I don't think you need bigger than 6-inch for a lot of emulation. In fact, some of the retro games just start looking weird to me when they're at 7, 8 or more inches on a screen, unless it's far away on a TV. So, something to keep in your mind. And again, $100 cheaper. Personally, I think AYN is probably going to come out ahead on this one in terms of popularity just because of the pricing and their track record, but we'll see. I might prefer the Ayaneo. I tend to like their hardware a little better than AYN, but again, is it worth that $100? And it's bigger. So yeah, that is what it is. And sort of my last sort of clamshell dual screen kind of bit here to add on bonus piece is the Retroid dual screen. So a few reviews came out last week and they said that the dual screen had some latency, like a few frames, which, another 50 milliseconds. So like 120 total or something like that with the Retroid Pocket 5's latency, which for some people is noticeable. I think that I would notice that. So it was a real bummer. People were starting to think that they made a mistake ordering this because of that latency. But I think yesterday, Chris from Retroid made a post saying that they have fixed it and somehow it now has very little latency. Now, I don't know how they've done this because originally they said there was 3 frames of latency because it had to process it, had to rotate it from landscape to portrait, and then had to display it on the screen. So I don't know what kind of hack they've done or how they've done that. Maybe it's less cycles. Maybe all 3 transforms are done in one cycle instead of 3. I don't really know. Not an engineer here, but that is good news for those of you that ordered the Retroid dual screen or are thinking about ordering it. Personally, I did order the other devices. I don't currently have a Retroid Pocket 5 or Mini in my possession, so I thought I would try something else out. So, I've got the Anbernic RG477M up here, plus some various PC handhelds. So I'll just kind of see how that dual screen plays with those. It might not be great, but I am curious, so stay tuned for a video on that. And then the last thing, some bonus PC handheld news, which is more speculation on the ROG Xbox Ally prices. Via PCGuide.com, there were previous conversions from Euro prices that kind of put it at like $699 and $1,050, but the newest leaks for this suggest that it's going to be $549 and $899 for the 2 models. That $549 would be the Z2A, the lower end chipset, and then the $899 would be the Z2E chipset. Now, I don't know a whole lot about the Z2A. That's kind of an unknown quantity. We haven't seen real-world tests on that, so I'm not really going to comment if that's one that you should buy or not. But $899, if that's true, for Z2 Extreme and the Ally. Now, keeping in mind Z2 Extreme is essentially cut down HX370, that's actually kind of a good price. Yes, it's expensive, Yes, it's ugly as sin. I think that the Xbox Ally is fugly. I kind of personally have no interest in it for my own handheld. I like bigger screens for PC stuff, and it's ugly. But it's probably really comfortable, so we might still check it out. But I digress. $900 for Z2E is actually pretty good value. Most of the boutique handhelds we've seen with the HX370 chipset, like the F1 Pro from 1X Player, stuff from GPD, etc. A lot of these are like $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 to get that chip in a handheld. So $900 actually looks pretty attractive. Now, when you've got a bevy of Z1E handhelds at $700 or potentially even cheaper with sales and used, that still might be a hard sell because Z2E, in theory, you're going to be like 15, 20% more performance than the 7840 or Z1E chipset. So for 20% more, for maybe double the price that you can get a used Ally for, maybe not the best deal. But if you're playing a game that's right on the cusp, it's getting 28 frames per second and you want to get 30, it's getting 50 frames per second and you want to get 60, then that Z2E should put you over the edge, and the extra RAM gives you some padding. But we'll find out more as that gets closer. I'll try to get my hands on one to test it out for you guys, but I do not know yet. That's just going to depend on availability. I don't get Ally stuff sent to me for review by Asus. I'm too little of a channel for that, so it's something I just got to buy with my own money, and we'll see if Best Buy actually delivers. Last time I tried to order something from Best Buy was the Z1E Legion Go S, and it actually was delayed, and then it got lost in shipment, so I never even got to check it out. I do have a Legion Go S up here, but this is the Z2 Go version, which I've kind of just kept for my personal collection right now. Anyway, Xbox Ally, official launch date is October 16th, so we should see prices and other details in concrete form very soon, and then, we'll be able to find out from there whether it's something that is worth getting. And I think that's all I've got for this week. That Clamshell dual screen news is sort of the big thing, and we'll see. I'm looking forward to finding out more about the Thor, and then next week we should get Odin 3 info. So maybe I'll try another one of these little news segments when that stuff comes out. If you guys like this one, we'll see. This is an experimental offering where I just kind of talk about what's going on and add a little bit of my own commentary. If you thought this was interesting or helpful, then leave a comment down below. If you thought that this was boring and sucked, then don't leave a comment down below. I mean, okay, you can tell me that you didn't like it that much, or the views will speak for themselves. But hey, your feedback helps me figure out what to do on this channel. And that's all I got for this week. So yeah, go pre-order your Ayaneo if you want one, or hang on tight for the AYN Thor, and we'll catch you next time.